Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is a pretty exciting one. It's a look at the first heroic dungeon of Legion that pretty much anybody has actually got to do. This was a part of the Legion dungeon race that I did with Treckie, Qelric, and Fatboss, and I've got to say, it was an absolute blast. So then, the Halls of Valor on heroic. What were my overall thoughts and impressions? Extremely good, pretty much. It's tuned quite tightly, however, I do want to put a warning out there for you. In Warlords of Draenor, the tuning was a lot tighter during the alpha and beta period, and the dungeons were way more fun than they were on launch. It's likely we'll see that again. I just think it's worth sort of pointing it out there. So I'm going to go over loads of things in this video. First of all, we'll cover the bosses, we'll cover the trash. I'll also cover the strategy and sort of the stuff that we were trying to do to go a little bit faster, because we actually got to do some practice on this. So first of all, and I think quite obviously, we were chain pulling all of these mobs. Now, there's these guys, they're like rune callers or something like that. They do a healing thingy on the floor, which is a little bit of a problem. There's guys that shoot lightning, which is a problem. And there's that big feckin' Drake, which again is a little bit of a problem. I actually got some aggro there because the hunter's headshot does so much damage, so I had to FD that off. Generally, we took this in one continuous pull, and we wouldn't have dropped combat. The dragon throws out those lightning kind of tornadoes, which you can see there, but the dragon also does a lightning breath, which you just again saw there. I was very kind of the dragon, right in time for what I was going to say. So we just killed him pretty quickly and slaughtered our way through these mobs, and this actually takes us right into the very first boss, which, by the way, significantly harder on heroic difficulty. We were surprised by the increase in difficulty, so he does a few different things. The main one is Horn of Valor. It's 150k damage to everyone, and then drakes will appear, and they will spread lightning on the floor. There are 3 different channels. There's the one which I'm running into now, there's the one in the middle, and then there's the one on the left. The Drake's lightning does a whole bunch of damage, and you don't want to stand into, in it. You can see where it's coming beforehand, though. On heroic difficulty, they will spawn these little swirly things, which you don't want to hit. Now, the first time he does it, only one sort of thing of lightning comes down. The second time, 2 things of lightning come down. So it does get a little bit more tricky. The third time, 3 will come down, but in successive order, so you can actually avoid them. He also throws out these weapons, these blades here. Now, they will knock you back, so you want to make sure you don't get blasted off the room. That's a pretty bad time. These will move around, basically like the Ravagers from General Nazgrim, and they do 230k damage if you stand in them, so obviously you don't want to stand in them. As you can, we'll see in the next few Horns of Valor that there will be quite a lot more of those lightning swirls going on. You also want to make sure that if you're a ranged player that you don't get whacked into anything by those Ravagers. He also does Bloodletting Sweep. This is mainly something for the melee players. Frontal Cone, 508k damage, reducing healing received, and applies a 50k dot. So you don't want to get hit by that if you're a melee player, quite obviously, and all that essentially means is don't stand in front of the boss. Other than that, though, he is simple enough. It's just, it was a little bit stressful, and there was quite a lot on the line for this. Now we move into a whole bunch of trash. This trash is fine. We kind of, we meant to only pull one side and go through, but artifact weapon complications and accidental pulls, kind of a pain in the ass, but it's more just confusions with the weapons. So our strategy here was, of course, cap totems and binding shots to keep things stunned and dealt with. With them dead, we just moved up the stairs, killed these guys, which was pretty damn simple. So with them dead, we move in here. Now, this is really interesting. There are these kegs, and you'll see me pick up one. It's more of like a sort of an ale tankard. Now, you can see that I pick it up, and then it instantly disappears from my action bar. This is a bug. What normally happens with those is you can use them as your extra action button, chuck them down on a mob, and then what you find is that mob, or all the mobs basically start brawling, and the pack drops combat, and then you can just move on to the next pack. That failed. We did this really big pull, and we died. So here's footage of us re-pulling and clearing our way through this side. This was probably the most catastrophic part of this dungeon run. Basically, a bug completely fucked us over, which is a little bit unfortunate. It only bugged out once in our 10 times of trying. So that kind of sucked. Anyway, we move on here. You've got these those big Stormforge guys. They put down lines of lightning on the floor. Obviously, you don't want to stand in that lightning. They're okay when you're outside like this, but in a very confined space, you don't have that much room to play with, and we'll see how that affects things later on. Here's a few more Yeah, there's just a few more sort of trash packs. You find that one that I'm attacking there, she jumps around from player to player, but other than that, they're kind of okay. We then move on to these two mobs. This one is doing one of the boss's abilities, and well, the other one will do another one of the boss's key abilities, so that actually serves as a kind of little prelude and a tutorial for the boss fight. The next one shoots out these bolts, I think. There we go, yeah, he's starting to cast it now. Shoots out these bolts, which will damage you if you stand in them. Our tactic was kind of just to stand behind Treckie, and he would normally just absorb them, and it ended up working out pretty good. So let's move on to the boss herself. You can see two beams go on to her right about now. So you only want one of those beams on, so you'll tank her over to one side. You can see she's being powered up by the mob, which sort of did the ability that spawned the shield and radiated damage. So basically with this, we'll see it happen in just a second. There you go. This thing spawns, so everyone wants to stand in it because you'll take less damage if you stand in it. And the amount of damage that it's called Empowerment Thunder, the amount of damage that it does increases with every tick, and we were actually quite surprised at how fast it ramped up on heroic mode. Now there's also what's on me, Expel Light. After 6 seconds, the targeted player explodes, dealing 280k damage to nearby players, and it bounces to players who are hit. So you want to make sure that multiple people don't get hit by this. So we've moved the boss over to this next side. This means that his holy empowerment is being charged up by this guy, so he's going to be doing the ability which sends the little swirlies out. Overall, this was quite doable, but what we found is with the thunder empowerment, it started to do crazy damage. You just saw Treckie get blasted back to the other side there. So that is, where are we? Shield of Light, so Light Beam shoots out of her shield, deals 600k damage to the target and knocks them back. Anyone standing within that big beam of light takes a lot of damage, a bit like half your health pool. You don't want to do that. Now, the boss is, basically the boss gains stacks every time they're at either side. The stacks fall off quite slowly on heroic mode. And what you find is that by the time you get here the second time, she's still stacked up quite high, so that ability does a lot of damage. That's why we took her back. Now, I died, I believe if you look at my health pot, you'll see it's on cooldown, but I didn't really gain any health from it. I should have turtled, but I didn't really want to lose the damage. It turned out the health pots were bugged for this entire run. We only worked it out later, and they weren't giving us any health back, which is kind of lovely. Overall, this is a really fun and engaging fight. I think it's brilliant. I like how you're managing the stacks that the boss has with these, the holy ability she's doing now, or the thunder ability that she just did. I think it's a very enjoyable fight, very well designed, and on heroic, the tight tuning does make it quite stressful, so I had an absolute blast with it. Next, we move on to some trash, so we're back into that room we were just in. We took the little risky tactic of running through here and skipping some trash. We had to make some time back. It was a bit of a ballsy decision. I'm glad it ended up getting made because it did save us some time. We've got these Stormforged giant guys. You'll see they put those lines down on the floor. That can get a little bit tricky when you're in this confined space where you don't want to pull the pack to the right. That's something you have to be careful about, but overall it wasn't too hard to do. Our next pull was simple. We just pulled the entire side of that of that room, and then we LOS pulled them into the side, and then AoE just blitzed them down. We found that was overall the fastest way to deal with this problem. So after that's done, what we did is we ran into that portal, which takes us into this really nice looking forested area. So we've got a few different things here. First of all, there is a yak. The yak is hostile. Got to watch out for it. And then there is the bear. The bears do a absolute crap ton of damage. It's insane. I don't know if it's in my cut currently, but there's one point where Treckie dies to a bear, and we have to start kiting the bear around so it doesn't kill people. This is the trash moving on to Fenrir. Spelled with a Y, of course, because you don't want to piss off the Norse gods, right? So here's him with two bears. I think I actually did include it then. Yeah, so this is the bit where there's a death, and then we need to sort of kite the boss around. Our combat heal was on use from the last boss where I had died because the potion didn't work, which is a little bit annoying. But anyway, we deal with the bear fine, and then move on to the first phase of this boss. Now, it's not really worth talking that much about his mechanics right now, because this only lasts for 33%, and then he runs away and you have to fight him again. So he does Unnerving Howl. This interrupts casts, and it's not actually doing its main effect on this phase of the boss. He then does this ability where he sort of jumps from player to player a little bit, doing some damage. We'll get into the details once he actually runs away, but this is basically your prelude to the boss. You also saw him do a swipe there. That just does a whole bunch of damage spread between players in melee range. It doesn't do enough damage to warrant, say, me as a ranged player having to stay in, though. that's pretty much what he's doing right now. You know, he's okay. If I'm honest, he's not the most interesting boss ever. So anyway, he runs off to his den here, and then we have to go down to his den. We've got these wargs here. They do increased damage when they're near each other. Of course, we were just, cap totening them, binding shotting them, and stuff like that to keep them stunned and get them killed pretty quickly, which was fine. One of his abilities, though, will actually summon these in during the boss fight, and in that case, they have to be dealt with quite quickly. Now, this boss fight was it was rather close for us overall, which was sort of strange. We ended up going in, I think, with 0 mana on Laws, which was a slight mistake, but, YOLO. So what does the boss do? He just did a Nerving Howl. This interrupts all casting for 3 seconds and summons 3 wargs. You can see the wargs there, they're stealthed. These will leap at players for 76k, bite them for 300k, and they get 25% extra damage whenever they are near a nearby warg. You just saw the boss ran after, who did they run after? Laws, yeah, ran after Laws. That's Scent for Blood. Chases a player for 6 seconds. His damage is increased by 25% per 2 seconds while chasing. Basically, if he hits you, you're totally bollocks, which isn't really a good thing. Now, the way that it happens is that when the boss focuses on you, you get a run speed increase, so you can just run away. But you do want to be careful, don't, tank or pull the boss somewhere silly, or, like pull ads or something like that. There's that. Now, you've also seen him do Ravenous Leap a few times, where he leaps from player to player. It's a bit similar to when Beast Lord Darmak is on his wolf mount. So he leaps from target to target, doing 132k damage to all players within 8 yards. So if you're all spread on top of each other, you're taking a lot of damage. And he also applies a bleed for 58k per 5.2 seconds. That just means that there's constantly damage going out to everyone. And that is essentially the entire boss fight. It's kind of simple, I suppose. It's very much just a case of run away when he does the bad things, stay kind of spread out, kill the ads. It does end up getting rather simple. I think what made it really enjoyable for this run was just the tuning, and that there was, some times where the damage was really quite high. Here's, I'm taking a lot of damage here from ticks of the dot that's the Ravenous Leap does. I think I ended up with 2 stacks. I accidentally pulled this doe, or not stag even. This stag almost killed Treckie after we killed the boss. So that was a bit of a mistake. So there you go. Fenrir's dead. Pretty easy boss. And we then go back into that first room, where there's like all the tables and the drinks and stuff. And we go across this light bridge, which takes us to where the final 2 bosses are. And before we kill the final 2 bosses, though, we do have a few trash packs. So these trash packs are simple enough. And they whack you with their weapon. They spawn in some ads, which you just need to kill. But the ads actually really didn't have that much health. So there's the first guy dead. If we move on to the second one, you fight him on his own. I mean, he does a few abilities, but honestly, none of them particularly matter. And then after him, you fight these 2 guys, which is a little bit harder. And actually, when I was going back here on normal to get some footage for another video, I found the groups were actually wiping to those 2 guys, which wasn't that good. Anyway, God King Scovald, he's the next boss. The first thing I need to describe to you, though, is the Aegis, or Aegis even, of Agrimar. This is a shield that is picked up by one of your players. This shield will give basically like immunity to a specific ability to anybody standing behind the player who uses the shield. Now that completely matters for this ability called Ragnarok. This deals 7k DPS to players every 1.5 seconds for 9 seconds. Each cast increases damage by 25%. There you go, he's just done Ragnarok. And then I think Treckie had the shield. Whoever had the shield activated it, we all stand behind the shield. And it's all good. A bug caused Qelric to die. She wasn't being covered by the shield. That was confirmed to be a bug by Blizzard after the fact. So that's what's going on with the shield. Now, after a player uses the shield, the boss picks the shield up. And then he's either immune from attack from a certain direction, or just takes less damage, but whatever, you just move behind him. Now, he's doing Flame of Woe. It spawns these ads. We worked out they're just not worth killing at all. Really, they're not. You want to ignore them, and they spawn fire around them, so just don't stand in the fire. Other than that, though, they're not really a big problem. From time to time, you'll see this boss use Fell Blaze Rush. This charges a player, and he does a spin around, which does 330k damage to everybody within 10 yards. Other than that, though, the boss is pretty darn simple. You just want to, use the Aegis of Agrimar correctly and make sure that the player who's picking that up is doing a good job with it. This is a boss which is so susceptible to trolling on live that it's not even funny. If a troll gets the Aegis, or the Aegis, fucking words. If a troll gets that and wants to kill the group, they could just move to the left and get everybody killed. In fact, a certain member of Fatboss may have done that during our practice run, which was quite funny. But that is pretty much it for God King Scovald. Our kill of this boss was a little bit slow because we were DPS down. Thankfully, it was confirmed that was due to a bug in the shield's damage mitigating effect not actually applying to Qelric's character, which kind of sucked. But hey, you got to deal with stuff like that when it's alpha, and that's just how it is. So look, you can assume we'll kill this boss, so let's just move on to Odin. So Odin is a super cool boss. He does a whole bunch of things. Now let's just start off with, we'll take them as they go. That's probably the easiest way. So first of all, we decided to pull him into the middle of the room. I think we ended up changing that. He just used Spear of Light. It causes these spears to appear. So the spears do like 500k to players within 8 yards, so you don't want to be standing within that swirl. And they do, I think, 127k to all players, and they also radiate damage out every 2 seconds. He then does this. This pulls everybody in, and it will do 1,000,000 damage to anyone standing inside it, so you want to stand outside it. Pretty simple. He spawns in this add, Stormforge Obliterator. It casts Surge, which does damage to every single player, which, that's a bit of a worry, right? But it's a very slow cast. It can be interrupted, but his cast time increases after each successful cast. Now, also these little balls will fly around the place, and then he just did Runic Brand. As you can see, it marked my character with a pink brand, and I moved into the pink location. Once you do that, you gain 50% increased damage, so that is when we would ideally be using our heroism. And the amount of damage that you do during that time is absolutely bonkers. I'm pretty sure we weren't able to use heroism because due to a mistake, we actually died the first time due to like an interrupt not going off on an ad, which was, that was a mistake. But anyway, that's essentially it for the entire fight with Odin. Is it a hard fight? Well, I don't really think so. You just need to do the correct thing. Like if you stand in the Spears of Light, yeah, you're in a very bad time. But don't stand in the Spears of Light and you'll be fine. If you stand in Radiant Tempest, you'll be dead, but at the end of the day, don't stand in Radiant Tempest and you'll be fine. He also does Shatter Spear, which that's what shatters those spears and makes little balls appear. So I just got the green thing, so I'm moving to the green mark, which then turns me into a Valkyr, meaning I do extra damage, which is quite nice. Now, you might think that Odin has a stupidly high amount of health. It's actually just the case that once you get him down to a certain amount of health, the boss fight ends because he's actually a good guy and he's just kind of proving your valor, or, something like that. That's pretty much it for this dungeon. I absolutely love it. I thought it was extremely fun. I just worry that by the time it hits live, it'll be way easier and won't be as fun. Hopefully the challenge modes are going to make up for that problem. That's one of the reasons why I'm actually quite excited about what they're doing with challenge modes in Legion and how they're actually going to be relevant. But overall, I thought that Odin was a very fun fight. There you go. We've just got him down and he runs off. And I think we actually got World First Surge Protector achievement, which obviously is a very very prestigious. That's not actually that prestigious, but that's basically it. It was a great dungeon. I had a lot of fun. Let me know what you think about this dungeon down in the comments, and let me know what you kind of want from a heroic dungeon. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.